In 2011, a tsunami swept along this coastline, killing 20,000 people. Today I'm standing on a trail which was built to re-energise and revitalise this entire coastline. And I've got a bit of a story to tell you. Today I'm running and walking about 20 kilometres of that trail as part of a bigger journey here in Japan. If you haven't seen my channel before, I'm normally based in Bali, but today I'm going along the Michinoku coastal trail in far northern Japan. The trail is a fascinating look into how the 2011 tsunami affected tiny communities all up and down this coastline, but also provides visitors the opportunity to contribute back to society here by, giving a bit of money down at the little restaurants and staying in little homestays. And it's that sort of trail which makes this place just absolutely wonderful. The views are great too. All along the trail there are markers like this one telling you how high the water got to during that tsunami. So as you can see, this whole area would have looked like a massive sea as far as the eye can see. And anything below that level absolutely wiped out and devastated. It's quite interesting to see actually, because there are a lot of towns that have been rebuilt fully since that time. But at the time when this thing happened, they were totally devastated. It's 3 degrees and the sun's just risen here in the town of Yamada in northeastern Japan, or the main island of Japan. It's a beautiful part of the world, and it's a part of Japan which I think is highly underrated, is that regional or rural Japan. We all know about the glitz and glamour and bright lights of places like Tokyo and Osaka, but for me, the real Japan, the real beautiful Japan, is away from all of that, really in the countryside. And you get coastlines just like this, which, there's almost nothing better than it. It's just classic Japanese coastline. One of the things that a lot of people don't realise about Japan is that it's an incredibly mountainous country. There are not many flat pieces of land in Japan. And even right down to the shoreline, it is just mountain, hills, bays, little inlets. So when there's a tsunami that comes and hits the coast, one thing that protects some of the land is these big mountains. But the other bad thing about it is, because there are these narrow inlets, the waves are sort of amplified as they come down the valley. And what happens is, communities over the centuries have tended to settle at the end of the bays where the rivers come into the bays, and they have fishing villages and so forth, sort of where the only flat land is, next to those rivers. And when the tsunami comes in, it comes down these big inlets or big bays all the way down, and it'll hit a village or a town like that. And all the way up and down this Michinoku coastal trail here in Japan, all the way along the northeastern coast for 1,000 kilometres, waves in the 2011 tsunami washed over all of those towns. Now, there are some mitigations in place with big seawalls in some places, but they just weren't adequate for the size of the waves that came in the 2011 tsunami. As you can probably see, I'm in a t-shirt, even though it's only 3 degrees, and I'm out of breath. So what's going on? Well, I'm running actually to the trailhead today. So what we've been doing for the past, few years, we've been walking along this 1,000-kilometre trail in sections. So a few hundred kilometres per year, and just going along section by section. Now this morning, from our hotel to where the trailhead is about 7 kilometres. So rather than walking it along the road here, we thought we'd run. And I'm carrying all our gear, and I'm out of breath. It's hot, up and down, carrying pack and running. Susan's off in the distance. A lot of people do this particular trail in different ways. Some of them try and do it start to finish in one go, 1,000 kilometres in one go. Some people try and do it in sections like Susan and I have been doing. Some people will camp the whole way, which would be really tough, especially in this colder weather. I think it'd be very difficult. You could do parts of it, but it could get quite bad because it does snow in this region in winter for sure. And then some people will stay in hotels every night, like that's what we do, or guest houses, or little homestays which are around the place, and that makes the trip very interesting. you're always meeting a new family or a new set of people every night, and it's just nice. The food's different every night. You have people cooking for you. It's just beautiful. The other thing is, you might walk for 20 kilometers and there's no hotel on that, at the end of that day. So you've got to pre-plan a little bit, because you might need to walk to a bus stop or a train station to catch transport back to your previous hotel and stay an extra night there. So we've pre-planned more or less how many kilometers we're going to walk every day. And we kind of have to stick to it, because once you're out there, you can't just sort of hail a taxi. It's pretty rural and remote, so you have to know if there's transport available at the end of the day, if there's no hotel there. Apparently there's bears in this part of the world as well. We are carrying bear bells, but I'm not really sure it's that big a risk. Maybe if you get up into the mountains, it's a little bit riskier. But it's just a beautiful time of year. This is November, and we still have some of those autumn colours here, and I just love that. We've also walked in January and February before, and most of that yellow and orange is gone by that stage. But at the moment, it still looks great. Yeah, it's just beautiful. What I like the peace and quiet. I love the stillness. I love the scenery. I love being out in nature. It's just it's peace. Some of you who have been watching my videos quite a lot recently will know that I love peace, and you get it here. From time to time, you will see signs like that indicating there are bears around. And in Japan, over the past sort of 5 years, the number of bear attacks has gone through the roof. Now, in most of Japan, they are black bears. They're quite aggressive, but not as aggressive as a brown bear. But they still kill people a lot. And so in Japan, if you're hiking through the wilderness, you just have to be a little bit extra careful. Try and make a bit of noise on the path, so you don't sort of surprise a bear and it surprises you that it tries to take you down. That's sort of the way I sort of see it, is that if you're making enough noise, you should be okay. But just be prepared that if a bear is there, what are you going to do? And I'm still not even really sure myself. We've got big sticks, walking sticks, but I'm not sure that's going to help when a big 50 to 70 kilo bear starts tearing flesh off me. We're now at the trailhead for our shortest trek today, so we've already run 7 kilometres. I think it's about 13 kilometres through the bush here. So we get up this road and it gets into the bush, and we take some track up into the forest over there. You can see over here, maybe just in the dark there is actually a seawall there, because this piece of land is very, very flat right through to the other end, another 2 kilometres over that way, where there's another seawall. And I'm assuming that with big tsunamis, it'll just wash straight through here. So they've got walls at either end, so the middle part doesn't get washed out. It is beautiful though. If you look over here, you have a lot of rice fields. Now, Japan, being an advanced economy, surprisingly has a lot of small holdings of rice fields like this. Most developed economies can't really afford to do that, but here in Japan they can, because the rice farmers are heavily subsidized. And the reason they're heavily subsidized is because Japanese love their Japanese rice, and they're really attached to the cultural aspect of the rice farming here. I like it. I often don't like things like subsidies and helping people out at taxpayers' expense and that sort of stuff. But when it comes to this sort of thing, I think it's a really good way to preserve the culture of a country. And I could see that happening in a lot of other countries where they're losing their culture due to globalization, that this sort of thing is not a bad thing to do. Pretty stunning colours though, isn't it? Like, just beautiful light. And the autumn colours you can see up there on that mountain. In the distance, on some of the mountains over there, I can see beautiful autumn colours. I love it. The trail itself has an interesting history. Historically, along this coastline, there have been many, many trails that are all sort of isolated and one-off trails in certain interesting parts of Japan. But what happened is that there was a group of people who got together and decided, hey, we want to make this one continuous long trail. And after the 2011 tsunami happened, it gave impetus to the idea that a 1,000-kilometre long continuous trail could really revitalise some of these smaller villages that have been devastated by the tsunami. So what you'll find is, I'll just pass a little marker there. So someone has tied a trail marker along this particular part of the trail. This is an old forestry track. Well, I think it's in use somewhat because you can see that it's not overgrown, but it's not used on a daily basis. And so a lot of the trail goes along forestry trails, it'll go along old bushwalking trails, and you'll see lots of old infrastructure along the trail as well. Old picnic tables that seemingly haven't been used for 30, 40 years, and they're now getting a new lease of life. I can imagine this in a lot of countries where, well, there is long distance trails in a lot of countries, like in the US there's a heap of them, like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. In Spain, the Camino de Santiago has lots of different long distance trails which are really good for those communities that they pass through. But in some other countries like Australia, we don't really have too many of them. We've got a few medium length trails and we have some other longer trails which don't have any support whatsoever from the government, and what you need is some coordinated effort to make these things work. For example, there is a thing called the Bicentennial Trail in Australia, which is a horseback trail that could be converted into more of a hiking trail, but you need facilities along the way. People don't really want to just go totally bush without any support. Some people do, but the vast majority of people don't want to do that. Ooh, this is very nice. Susan's just getting some photos here because this is a beautiful, beautiful little section of the trail. But here in Japan, they've given this some good support. So for example, you can get these badges. So through each, I think it's prefecture that you go through, or a sub-prefecture, I can't remember which one it is. There are badges associated with it, physical badges, and you can get those badges or buy them only if you've walked the trail. And they're almost like your battle scar of having passed through a particular area. So what you do to prove that you've walked it is that there are stamp books. So you get this stamp book like a passport, and as you pass through particular towns and stay at hotels and go to restaurants and so forth, they will have the town stamp and they'll stamp your book. And if you get, I think, 4 stamps per prefecture or sub-prefecture, you are then entitled to buy a little badge. So it's something quite small, but it gives you something to sort of aim for when you're doing this thing. So we've got a few badges so far, and you can put them on your backpack to show, hey, this is where I've been and this is what I've done. It's quite nice. One of the things about the Michinoku Coastal Trail is that they have these way markers around the place. For example, Aragami Swimming Beach, 5 kilometres that way. So that's what we'll be doing. So we've just come off that forestry trail into a more sort of bush type setting. And yeah, that's sort of what it's like, sort of in and out of forestry trails, bushwalking, that sort of stuff. We're about 200 metres above sea level now, so we've come up a fair way, but it's been, to be honest, quite easy because it's along that road. It's pretty easy going, we're making pretty good pace. Today's a shorter day for us, whereas most days are quite long. That's because we chose to have a bit of a shorter day on our first day on the trail this time. Yeah, as the days go on, it's going to get a little bit more difficult, I think. For example, tomorrow we have a 600 metre mountain to climb, but again, it's not the end of the world. So we are walking with these walking sticks. I've tried walking with walking sticks in the past many years ago, and I really hated them. But I became a convert when I was in Patagonia. There was a guy there from a supply shop, and he said, look, I recommend you take sticks. And I said, look, I don't do sticks. I just can't use them. I don't know how to use them. And he said, look, take them, you'll thank me later. So we took sticks, and he was right, you know, after a couple of days of trekking with these sticks, oh my God, that is steep. That is really steep. Susan's at the top. Oh. Plastic stairs, this is cool, look at these. It doesn't look like anyone's been along here for a while. But yeah, he said that I should take sticks, and after a couple of days, I got used to them, and they do provide a lot of help. A lot of help. Going upstairs like this, they are of marginal benefit. But when you're on uneasy or uneven terrain, just gives you that little bit of extra confidence, a little bit of stability, and that stability really helps with things like your hips and your knees. They get a big break because they've got extra stability from these sticks. Whew, that is steep and a long way down. Gee, it's beautiful being out here in nature though. So we've finally got to the peak of the mountain today. It's only 305 metres, but it felt like a long way towards the end. The view is stunning. Back down to the village where we were just before. We ran along the road down there, and then we've come up there 300 metres. The other side of the hill is into that area, which you can't really see through the trees too much, but needless to say, that's where we're trekking tomorrow. There's a big mountain across there, so looking forward to that. We keep going. It's actually a really beautiful day for a walk. It's a little bit overcast. It's cool, slightly cold, but when you're huffing and puffing, it's actually nice to be cool. Like, you don't want hot days when you're hiking through the bush. One of the temptations when you live in Bali like we do is that because it's so hot, the temptation is to sort of sit inside all day and just keep cool. And that's what we do most of the day, but we've also started to make an effort, or we've been making an effort for a while now, to exercise in the morning along the beachfront path, even though it's still hot. It's hot as anything, and you feel like you're not making any progress in terms of your fitness because it's so hot and you're always sweating and out of breath. But I noticed that now we're in this cool climate, our fitness is just through the roof because we've done all that hot weather exercise, and you get here and your body's like, this is nothing, this is easy, hardly sweating, you know. It's just, those adaptations you make when it's hot, sometimes you don't really notice them. This is when your sticks really come in handy. It gets a bit hairy coming down. The ground below you is just full of stones, loose stones, and of course I can't have my sticks in my hand at the moment because I'm filming, but I normally would. And you can just see Susan picking her way through the rocks there as we make our way down this mountainside. It's a bit slower than we actually expected because we made such good time coming up. Like, we were thinking we might even be finished by midday. Oh, there's the view. How about that? Isn't that beautiful? That's all the way down the coast. So these are all the bays and inlets that were affected by the tsunami. So all of the places here that you see, if you see any buildings out there, and there are some really far on the coast there, they got affected by the tsunami. There are seawalls in each of those towns. The seawall program basically started pre-war in 1933 after a massive tsunami hit this coastline. So they started building these seawalls everywhere. And then, of course, the next tsunami came, or next massive tsunami came in 2011. So 80 years later, the next tsunami that came was actually bigger than the seawalls that had been built. But in fact, after the Second World War, there was a massive construction or reconstruction program in Japan, which built a lot more seawalls and increased the height of seawalls. But still, that 2011 tsunami was so massive that it just went straight over the top of many seawalls, not everyone, but many of them. And since 2011, the government's put billions and billions of dollars, and that's probably like trillions of yen, because the yen is 100 yen to $1 Australian dollar. And they've put trillions of yen into building bigger seawalls. So outside every town, you'll have seawalls, and they're unsightly. They really are. But if you have a tsunami, they're going to save your life. So they're sort of really required, especially on this coastline, because it is so prone to tsunamis. So off the coast, you have a massive subduction zone, or basically where the two plates collide and one slipping under the other, and you get these big slips of the plates, and it just sends waves in, you know, massive earthquake, sends waves in, and then in all of these bays you just have absolute devastation. I know this is probably a niche interest, but I like to see this sort of stuff. See that little, those steps are concrete steps, yeah? And they're old. Like, they're way before the 2011 tsunami. I mean, they'd have to be at least 20, 30 years old. You can see big trees have grown in between some of the stairs as well, which sort of indicates, yeah, they're really old, which means this path has been here for a very long time. It's really in the middle of nowhere, honestly. It's quite incredible that someone a long time ago had the foresight to build a public facility like this, put a lot of money into building stairs through the forest, going from nowhere to nowhere, and yet 30 years down the track it becomes a useful through hike. I think we do that, we have done that a lot in somewhere like Australia. We did a lot of these bushwalking tracks in the Blue Mountains, sort of popped up late 1800s, early 1900s, but I don't feel like we sort of do that much anymore in a place like Australia. Probably Europe is a little bit similar. We don't sort of have the foresight, or we don't have the political will to do things that aren't going to benefit us immediately. Indonesia's certainly like that, very short-termism. I think it's a little bit sad really, because when you invest in things that aren't immediately going to pay you back, you don't need a business case for it. It's for the public good for a long time. And we just don't do it anymore. And I think we need to, because that foresight really makes these sorts of places better places. Like, if you were to build this in Australia now, well, you wouldn't do it, because it would cost a fortune for starters, because you'd have to have some sort of massive project involved. You'd have to make it perfect so that it's ultra safe. You couldn't have any sort of personal responsibility involved in the trek. You know, you'd make it just beautiful, and it costs millions, so you just wouldn't bother. Whereas I think in the past we used to just cut things out of the side of the mountain, and, you know, it was good enough. I'm a bit sad about that, really. That short-termism I really don't like. I think our politics drives that in a lot of ways. For me, as we come down this mountainside, this is classic Japan. You have pine forests bordering these small little inlets that are really just mountainous in the backs. Like, if you go back, it gets really sort of high up. And then the ocean often looks absolutely crystal clear and blue and beautiful, but absolutely unswimmable at the moment because it's so cold. But in summer, Japan can get quite hot, steaming hot actually. And I can imagine those beaches being absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. I'm sure the water's always cold though. It just feels like a cold place. Beautiful though, isn't it? These autumn colours are great as well. Look at this. Isn't that good? We've nearly got down to sea level again. Pretty easy walk down. Steep in some sections. We had some chains to go down before. Not that big a deal, just take it slow. Often in these remote areas where these little beaches are and so forth, and we've walked a lot of these little inlets over the past couple of years, you'll find debris in the bush that was washed up in 2011, like fishing gear, for example, which is quite high up the mountainside, which never got cleared away because it's quite remote. You still see that to this day. It's quite interesting that that devastation still, you know, it still has some evidence of existing. Look at that tree. Look at the colour of that one. Isn't that brilliant? We're just down at that beach now, and the water is just beautiful and crystal clear. We're going along a seawall here, around the corner. There must be civilization around here somewhere if they've been able to build this beautiful seawall. I mean, it's a little bit wrecked after years of getting smashed by waves, I guess. Yeah, nice part of the world. This beach over here that we just passed is signposted, so I guess it might be a popular little destination for Japanese people to come to during the summertime. It feels that way. It feels like it's maybe famous in the local area, maybe. I mean, that's what it sort of feels like. So I think the water being so clear is just so attractive to most people. Like, you could get your snorkeling gear on in there easily. I'd really love to know how they got the concrete down here for this. Like, there's no road around here. They've been able to concrete all around the side, all the way along here. Like, you could imagine a barge or something like that, but gee, not really sure. It's pretty cool that they've been able to do it. Japanese are always building these little seawalls everywhere, so they're pretty expert at it. Oh, we've got to go up here, up a rope, and up there. The Japanese are so good at building seawalls that they are helping in Indonesia, in Bali, and in Sanur specifically, with erosion. So they helped with the building of a lot of those little man-made islands and seawalls in Sanur. They're doing the same in Kuta as well. Because they're so good at building seawalls, they're providing expertise, and I'm sure a little bit of cash as well, to the Indonesian government to help with some of those issues that we're facing at the moment in Bali. This is pretty standard in Japan as well. That there is like a plantation. Just been bush bashing a bit through the forest there and came across this sign here. That's where the tsunami came up to in 2011. And we just pan around there, around, and then down to the beach below, which is another tourist attraction in this area, this beach. Apparently very popular in summer. So it's another beach, a little bit more accessible because cars can get here. The previous beach I went to didn't have any car access. It's sort of like a bushwalking beach. I can see why this is a popular place because it's spectacular. You should see this. I'm surprised the tsunami came up so high though. This is a long way down. Look at this place. Oh my God. That's like on a tropical island somewhere. The water's just crystal clear. And I guess you could go snorkeling out there, paddle around that little island. It's so calm and peaceful, the water. There's over there in the distance, there's a little temple. Beautiful. This is Japan, the Japan that we sometimes don't really think too much about. Japan's got this reputation of being, all lights and busyness and efficient trains and this sort of stuff, but it's so different to that in my experience. You've got a bit of that in Tokyo, but the rest of Japan is this is classic for me. Just classic Japan. It's just beautiful. I love being out in nature, and I'm glad I'm able to sort of show this to you as I have some time off YouTube, just slipping a video in here and there. Thanks for coming along for the ride today. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with, all things Sanur, but also a bit of Japan as well. I'll catch you next time. Sanpai Jumpa.